Back in the day, kitchens buzzed with the sounds of chopping, simmering, and sizzling as meals were crafted with time, care, and love. There were no buttons to push or timers to set, just good old-fashioned cooking and recipes that have been passed down through generations. So today, join us as we'll be looking at 20 forgotten favorites that were once the pride of dinner tables everywhere before microwave ovens came into the picture. 1. Glazed Cornish hens with pecan rice stuffing. Glazed Cornish hens were a centerpiece dish that radiated sophistication and charm at the dinner table, long before microwaves and quick-fix meals took over. These miniature hens, tender and individually portioned, were often prepared with a glossy glaze made of honey, orange juice, or apricot preserves. The glaze caramelized beautifully in the oven, creating a golden brown, slightly crisp skin that promised juiciness underneath. The stuffing combined fluffy long-grain rice with crunchy toasted pecans, onions, and aromatic herbs like sage and thyme. Sometimes dried cranberries or raisins were added to lend a subtle sweetness to complement the savory stuffing. Preparing this dish was a labor of love, from tying the hen's legs for even roasting to basting the glaze every 15 minutes, ensuring maximum flavor. Glazed Cornish hens were about both indulgence and tradition, reflecting the era when meals were made with time, care, and plenty of hands-on attention. Serve it alongside buttery green beans or roasted root vegetables for a complete meal that was as festive as it was filling. Our next dish is quite indulgent. 2. Mini hot browns. Originating in the early 20th century from the Brown Hotel in Louisville, Kentucky, the hot brown became an instant classic. Mini hot browns were a bite-sized version of this beloved comfort food, perfect for brunches, family gatherings, or game day spreads. These toasty creations featured tender slices of roasted turkey, layered atop small pieces of toasted bread, often buttered or crisped in the oven for added texture. But the real magic came from the creamy Mornay sauce drizzled generously over the top. Mornay is a rich bechamel sauce enhanced with melted Parmesan or Gruyere cheese, creating a silky, savory blanket of flavor. As if that weren't enough, crispy strips of bacon were placed on top, delivering a smoky, salty punch to each bite. The dish was often broiled just before serving to give the sauce a slight golden brown hue and bubbly texture, ensuring it was gooey and irresistible. Variations of mini hot browns sometimes included tomatoes for a fresh twist, or even a sprinkle of parsley for color. They were filling enough to satisfy hunger, but small enough to keep you coming back for seconds. Or thirds, just like our next dish. 3. Split pea soup with ham bone. In a time when food waste wasn't an option, resourcefulness ruled the kitchen, and split pea soup with ham bone stood as a perfect example of thrift meeting deliciousness. This thick, hearty soup was a household favorite, particularly during colder months. The soup began with a leftover ham bone, usually saved from Sunday dinner. The bone simmered for hours with water or broth, releasing deep, smoky flavors into the base of the soup. To this flavorful liquid, dried green split peas were added and left to cook until soft and creamy. Alongside the peas, onions, carrots, celery, and garlic were sautéed and thrown into the pot. The soup thickened naturally as the peas broke down. Shreds of ham fell off the bone during the slow simmer, ensuring that no part of the leftover meat went to waste. Some families seasoned their split pea soup with a pinch of thyme, bay leaf, or even a dash of vinegar to balance the richness. Served piping hot with crusty bread or cornbread on the side, this humble dish showcased how simple ingredients and slow cooking could create something remarkable, not unlike the next dish on our list. 4. Sloppy Joe pasta. If there's one thing that defines family-friendly comfort food, it's Sloppy Joes. And back before microwaves, creative cooks took those familiar flavors and turned them into a satisfying pasta dish. Sloppy Joe pasta combined the tangy, meaty goodness of classic Sloppy Joes with hearty noodles for a messy yet mouthwatering meal. The sauce began with browned ground beef sautéed with diced onions, garlic, and bell peppers, adding depth and texture. To that, a mix of ketchup, tomato paste, Worcestershire sauce, and a touch of brown sugar created the signature sweet and savory tang that made Sloppy Joes such a hit. This bold tomato-based mixture simmered until thick and bubbly, reducing into a sauce that coated the noodles perfectly. The pasta, usually elbow macaroni, penne, or rotini, was cooked separately and then tossed generously in the meaty sloppy joe sauce. Some families added grated cheddar cheese on top, popping the entire dish into the oven to melt the cheese into a golden, gooey crust. Others stirred in frozen peas or corn for a pop of color and sweetness. Next up, we bring a ground meat delicacy. 5. Vienna sausage. Vienna sausages were a pantry staple long before modern meal shortcuts existed. These small, soft-textured sausages were typically packed in cans, often surrounded by a gelatinous broth. Despite their humble origins, Vienna sausages found their way into countless recipes and snack ideas, becoming a beloved convenience food of their time. Originating from European traditions of finely ground, smoked meats, the canned American version became popular during the 20th century due to its shelf stability and affordability. In many households, Vienna sausages were sliced and fried in butter or tossed into scrambled eggs for a quick, protein-packed breakfast. Other families added them to stews, rice dishes, or casseroles to stretch ingredients further. Creative cooks wrapped Vienna sausages in biscuit dough or puff pastry to create miniature pigs in a blanket, making them a fun and portable snack for kids and adults alike. Their salty, mildly smoky flavor paired well with everything from mustard to ketchup, ensuring they could be customized to suit any taste. While the idea of eating them straight from the can may seem unappealing today, back then, they were a versatile ingredient that required little prep. Our next dish is an all-time favorite. 6. Fried chicken. No food represents old-fashioned family gatherings better than fried chicken. Golden, crispy, and seasoned to perfection, fried chicken was a dish that brought everyone running to the table, regardless of what else was on the menu. Before microwaves, fast food, or air fryers, this culinary masterpiece was the pride of family cooks who spent hours ensuring each piece was fried just right. The process of making fried chicken began early in the day. It started with fresh chicken pieces, drumsticks, thighs, breasts, and wings, carefully washed and seasoned with a blend of salt, pepper, and spices like paprika, garlic powder, or cayenne for a little kick. Each piece was dipped into buttermilk or an egg wash, which acted as the glue for the coating. The coating itself was typically flour seasoned with more spices, sometimes with cornmeal or cracker crumbs added for extra crunch. Cast iron skillets were filled with bubbling hot lard or oil heated to just the right temperature. The chicken was gently lowered into the oil and fried slowly, creating a crispy golden brown crust while locking in all the juices inside. The sizzle, the smell, and the sight of each golden piece emerging from the skillet were enough to make stomachs rumble in anticipation. Once the fried chicken was ready, it was laid out on paper towels to drain any excess oil. Families often served it with classic sides like mashed potatoes, coleslaw, and flaky biscuits. Our next dish is a well-known pie dish. 7. Cheeseburger pie. Cheeseburger pie emerged in mid-20th century kitchens when creative cooks sought to turn the flavors of a classic cheeseburger into an easy-to-make casserole that could feed the whole family without the fuss of grilling patties. The crust was often a mixture of biscuit dough or a pie shell that acted as the sturdy base for the savory filling. Inside, browned ground beef, seasoned with onions, garlic, salt, and pepper, was the star ingredient. Families sometimes added ketchup, mustard, and Worcestershire sauce to give it that unmistakable burger flavor. Cheddar cheese, or American cheese for an extra nostalgic nod, was layered generously over the meat, melting into gooey perfection as it baked. Some variations added pickles, tomatoes, or even crumbled bacon to make the pie feel even more like a backyard cheeseburger. Once assembled, the pie went into the oven until the crust was golden and the cheese bubbled over the sides, filling the kitchen with an aroma that had everyone hovering around the stove. Cheeseburger pie was served piping hot, often sliced into wedges like a savory dessert. Families paired it with simple sides like green beans, potato salad, or a tossed salad for balance. It was quick to make, easy to clean up, and most importantly, made kids and adults alike happy. Let's now pay a visit to Germany, shall we? 8. Labskaus. Labskaus is one of those quirky, traditional dishes with roots in Northern Europe, specifically Germany's seafaring regions. The base of Labskaus is corned beef, a staple for sailors since it was preserved and long-lasting. The beef was cooked until tender, then mashed together with boiled potatoes and onions to create a thick, almost pâté-like texture. To give it that signature pink hue, some families added pickled beets or beet juice, which not only brightened the dish visually but also added a subtle tanginess. The dish was traditionally topped with a fried egg, its runny yolk seeping into the salty mash, adding creaminess and richness to each bite. Pickles or gherkins were served alongside for crunch and acidity, cutting through the heaviness. In some families, a herring fillet or rollmop, pickled herring, was laid on top of the dish, a nod to its maritime origins and a way to add an extra layer of briny flavor. Though it may seem unusual by today's standards, Labskaus was a practical and beloved staple for families who valued resourcefulness and tradition. Our next item on this list is a classic. 9. Egg rolls. Before microwaves and takeout menus streamlined dinner, egg rolls were often a labor of love made right at home. Crispy, golden, and stuffed to bursting with savory goodness, homemade egg rolls were a special treat for families who embraced global flavors. They originated in Chinese-American cuisine, but quickly became a household favorite in the 20th century. The process began with fresh, finely chopped ingredients. The filling usually included seasoned ground pork, shredded cabbage, carrots, onions, and sometimes mushrooms, all stir-fried together in a wok or skillet with soy sauce, sesame oil, and a hint of garlic and ginger. Some families even added bean sprouts, bamboo shoots, or shrimp for a little extra flair. The key was to create a balanced, slightly savory sweet filling with just the right texture. Not too soggy, not too dry. Once cooled, the filling was carefully rolled into thin egg roll wrappers, a task that required patience and precision. The wrappers, pliable and dusted lightly with cornstarch, were folded tightly around the filling like little envelopes and sealed with a dab of water or egg wash. Then came the most satisfying part: frying. The egg rolls were dropped into hot oil, sizzling and bubbling as they turned a perfect golden brown. The exterior crisped up beautifully, forming a flaky, crunchy shell that contrasted with the tender filling inside. Egg rolls were best enjoyed piping hot, often served with homemade sweet and sour sauce or a soy vinegar dip. For many families, they weren't just appetizers. They were a main course or a fun food for parties. For parents and kids, biting into a homemade egg roll was a joy. The crunch, the steam, and that rich filling made every effort worthwhile. Your doctor would applaud this next dish. 10. Avocado caprese wrap. Long before avocado toast became trendy, families were already finding creative ways to use this buttery, green fruit. Enter the avocado caprese wrap. Soft tortillas or flatbreads acted as the foundation, sometimes lightly grilled to add warmth and pliability. Spread generously over the wrap was a creamy layer of mashed avocado, seasoned with a pinch of salt, pepper, and a squeeze of lemon juice to keep it vibrant and zesty. Next came slices of ripe, juicy tomatoes, thick enough to hold their shape but thin enough to fold neatly into the wrap. Fresh mozzarella cheese, usually sliced into medallions, layered beautifully over the tomatoes, bringing a mild, creamy texture that balanced the tang of the lemon-kissed avocado. But what really made this dish sing was the addition of fresh basil leaves. Their bright, peppery aroma mingled perfectly with the other ingredients, tying everything together with a burst of summery flavor. A drizzle of balsamic glaze or olive oil was often added for richness, creating that signature caprese salad vibe. Once everything was layered, the tortilla was rolled up tightly and sliced into halves or pinwheels for easy eating. Families loved this wrap because it was healthy, vibrant, and effortlessly elegant, something that felt a little more special than a standard sandwich. It didn't require a stove or oven, making it ideal for those days when kitchens were sweltering and no one wanted to heat up the house. Our next dish features seafood and eggs. 11. Smoked salmon egg salad. The smoked salmon egg salad was a sophisticated yet surprisingly simple dish that showcased an old-world elegance. Before the era of pre-packaged lunches, this dish was a favorite among families who loved to elevate classic egg salad into something a little more refined. It brought together the creamy comfort of eggs with the luxurious, smoky flavor of salmon, perfect for brunches, tea parties, or a satisfying lunch spread. The heart of the dish, of course, was the egg salad. Hard-boiled eggs were peeled and diced, their creamy yolks blending seamlessly with a dressing made of mayonnaise, a touch of Dijon mustard, and a splash of lemon juice for brightness. Some cooks added finely chopped chives, red onions, or a sprinkle of dill to give the mixture a burst of herby freshness. But what set this egg salad apart was the smoked salmon. Thin, velvety slices of salmon, delicately cured and infused with smokiness, were either folded into the egg mixture or layered on top when served. The salmon brought a depth of flavor and texture that transformed the dish from simple to spectacular. To add even more elegance, capers were often sprinkled on top, their salty, briny punch pairing beautifully with the richness of the eggs and fish. The smoked salmon egg salad could be served in countless ways. It was often spooned onto soft, crusty bread for open-faced sandwiches or nestled into buttery croissants for a decadent twist. For lighter fare, families piled it onto crisp lettuce leaves or crackers for bite-sized delights. Our next dish is named for a family member. 12. Johnny Marzetti. Johnny Marzetti is a baked pasta casserole that became a dinner table staple long before microwaves existed. This hearty dish was a beloved Midwestern classic, born in the early 20th century at the Marzetti family restaurant in Columbus, Ohio. Johnny Marzetti is a cheesy combination of tender elbow macaroni or egg noodles, seasoned ground beef, and a rich tomato sauce. The ground beef is browned with onions, garlic, and green bell peppers, creating a savory, aromatic base. A tomato-based sauce, often made with canned tomatoes or tomato paste, simmers alongside the meat, infused with Italian herbs like oregano and basil for depth. Once the meat sauce is mixed with the pasta, everything is layered in a casserole dish with generous amounts of shredded cheese, usually sharp cheddar or mozzarella. As it bakes, the cheese melts and forms a golden brown crust on top, while the pasta soaks up all the savory sauce underneath. This dish was a lifesaver for busy families because it could be prepared in advance, stored easily, and reheated, the old-fashioned way, in the oven without losing any of its charm. Leftovers, if there were any, tasted even better the next day. The next dish on our list uses potatoes. 13. Potato kielbasa. Potato kielbasa is a humble, one-pan wonder that reflects the resourcefulness of families who made the most of simple, affordable ingredients without sacrificing flavor. The preparation began with kielbasa, a Polish smoked sausage that brought its signature savory, garlicky flavor to the dish. Sliced into hearty rounds, the sausage was browned in a skillet to release its juices and infuse everything with smoky richness. Meanwhile, diced potatoes were peeled and cubed, then fried or roasted until their edges turned crispy and golden while remaining soft and tender on the inside. Once the kielbasa and potatoes were cooked to perfection, caramelized onions were added to the mix. Slowly sautéed in butter or bacon drippings, the onions turned sweet and jammy, complementing the saltiness of the sausage. For an extra punch of flavor, families often added garlic, paprika, or even a splash of vinegar for tang. Some cooks threw in bell peppers or cabbage, stretching the dish even further while boosting its color and nutrition. Potato kielbasa was a no-fuss, stick-to-your-ribs kind of meal that brought families together. It was usually served straight from the skillet, piping hot, with a dollop of sour cream or a sprinkle of fresh parsley on top. The beauty of this dish lay in its rustic simplicity. It required no oven or special tools, just a skillet, a stove, and a little bit of love. Families appreciated its ability to turn basic pantry staples into something deeply satisfying, a reminder that the best meals often come from the simplest ingredients. Our next dish is proof that pastries can be made without a microwave. 14. Cornish pasty. The Cornish pasty is a handheld masterpiece, beloved for its rich history and hearty filling. Originating from Cornwall, England, this savory pastry was a favorite among miners and laborers who needed a filling portable meal to sustain them through long days. Families adopted the pasty for its practicality and the way it could stretch leftovers into a satisfying meal. The traditional Cornish pasty featured a golden, flaky crust made from sturdy, short-crust pastry. The dough was rolled out into thick rounds, creating a durable envelope to encase the filling. Inside, a mixture of cubed beef, often cheap cuts like skirt steak, potatoes, rutabagas, swedes, and onions was tucked in. The ingredients were seasoned simply with salt and pepper, but as they baked, the natural juices from the meat and vegetables combined to create a rich, savory gravy inside the sealed pocket. The pasty was folded into its iconic D shape, with the edges crimped by hand to seal everything in tightly. This crimped edge wasn't just decorative, it was functional too. Miners could hold onto the edge with dirty hands while eating the rest of the pasty, then discard the crust to avoid consuming coal dust. For families, the Cornish pasty became a symbol of comfort and resourcefulness. Variations sprang up as home cooks experimented with different fillings: chicken, pork, or even leftover vegetables. Cheese and herbs were sometimes added for extra flavor, and sweet versions emerged with fillings like apples or berries. Baked until golden and fragrant, the pasty could be served hot from the oven or enjoyed cold for lunch the next day. It was a meal that traveled well, made the most of simple ingredients, and left everyone satisfied. For families gathered around the table, biting into a homemade pasty was a moment of warmth, tradition, and hearty goodness. Next up, we will take a trip to Philadelphia. 15. Philly-style Italian hoagie. The Philly-style Italian hoagie is a sandwich steeped in history and flavor, a masterpiece that brought bold, fresh ingredients to family tables long before fast food chains took over. Originating in Philadelphia's Italian-American community, this iconic hoagie was all about quality meats, crisp vegetables, and a perfect roll to tie it all together. The foundation of any good Italian hoagie is the bread, an Italian sub-roll that's chewy on the inside with a slightly crisp exterior. It needed to hold up to the substantial fillings without falling apart. The roll was split lengthwise and layered generously with thinly sliced Italian meats. Capicola, salami, mortadella, and prosciutto were classic choices, their rich, salty flavors mingling beautifully with each bite. Next came the cheese. Sharp provolone was the traditional option, offering a slightly tangy, nutty bite that balanced the meats perfectly. Fresh vegetables were added for crunch and contrast. Shredded lettuce, sliced tomatoes, onions, and occasionally pepperoncini or banana peppers for a mild kick. What truly made this sandwich sing was its seasoning. The vegetables were lightly dressed with oil and vinegar, a sprinkle of oregano, and salt and pepper. This combination created a bright, tangy flavor that cut through the richness of the meats and cheese. Some families added mayonnaise or mustard, but purists preferred to keep it classic. The hoagie was then pressed slightly to meld the layers together, making every bite a perfect balance of textures and flavors. Served with a handful of chips or a dill pickle, the Philly-style Italian hoagie was a hearty, satisfying meal that felt indulgent, yet refreshingly simple. Next up, a sweet snack. 16. Ants on a log. Ants on a log is the quintessential fun and fuss-free snack that generations of families have enjoyed, especially before the microwave era when convenience foods were limited. Though it might sound whimsical, and even a bit silly, this charmingly named dish is a creative combination of wholesome ingredients that brought a smile to kids and adults alike. The log in this snack is a fresh, crisp celery stalk, which provides the perfect balance of crunch and natural freshness. The celery is washed, trimmed, and cut into easy-to-hold sticks that act as a vessel for the delicious toppings. Next comes the glue, a generous layer of creamy peanut butter spread neatly, or not so neatly, along the hollow center of the celery. This salty, nutty base is not only delicious but also packed with protein, offering energy for long afternoons of play or work. Finally, the ants are artfully arranged on top, plump raisins that stick to the peanut butter like tiny passengers. This playful presentation transformed an ordinary snack into something special. For families, it was a perfect balance of flavors: the slight bitterness of the celery, the creamy richness of the peanut butter, and the chewy, sweet burst of the raisins. Of course, variations on ants on a log popped up in kitchens over time. Cream cheese could be swapped in for peanut butter for a milder, tangy flavor, or the raisins might be replaced with dried cranberries, nuts, or chocolate chips to mix things up. Honey or a dusting of cinnamon was sometimes added for a touch of extra sweetness. Ants on a log wasn't just a snack, it was an activity. Kids often loved helping to build their logs, feeling pride in creating a dish that looked fun and tasted great. It was also a mom-approved treat, a way to sneak in veggies and protein without a fight. Do you like chicken? Of course you do, hence this next dish. 17. Chicken amandine. Chicken amandine was a dish that evoked elegance and sophistication, yet it was straightforward enough to make its way to the everyday family dinner table. Popularized during the mid-20th century, this French-inspired recipe combined tender chicken with the nutty crunch of toasted almonds, offering a simple yet refined flavor profile that felt like something special. The dish began with boneless chicken breasts or thighs, seasoned simply with salt, pepper, and sometimes a touch of garlic powder for added depth. The chicken was dredged lightly in flour and pan-fried in butter until golden and crispy on the outside while remaining tender and juicy within. Butter was key to achieving that rich golden brown sear, giving the dish a warm, comforting flavor. The amandine magic happened next. A generous handful of sliced almonds was toasted in the same buttery skillet. The almonds turned golden and fragrant, bringing a delightful crunch and a subtle nuttiness to the dish. To finish, fresh lemon juice was often added to the skillet, creating a delicate, tangy sauce that balanced the richness of the butter and almonds. Parsley was sprinkled over the top as a fresh, colorful garnish. Chicken amandine could be served alongside a variety of sides: fluffy white rice, buttery green beans, or creamy mashed potatoes, to soak up the delectable pan sauce. It was the kind of meal that looked impressive on the table, yet required minimal effort and only a handful of ingredients. For many families, this dish felt like a nod to fine dining, offering a taste of elegance without needing a fancy restaurant. It reflected an era where home cooks embraced international influences, bringing simple French techniques into everyday kitchens. Our next dish is a little eccentric. 18. Porcupine meatballs. Porcupine meatballs are a quirky, nostalgic dish that families adored long before microwaves became a kitchen staple. This playful recipe gets its name from its unique appearance. As the meatballs cook, grains of rice stick out like little porcupine quills, turning an ordinary meatball into a fun and hearty meal. The recipe starts with ground beef, a dinner table favorite that stretched far when paired with pantry staples. To the beef, home cooks added uncooked white rice, which was the dish's signature ingredient. As the meatballs simmered, the rice would absorb moisture and cook inside the meat, expanding outward and poking through like bristles. This creative technique gave the meatballs their distinctive texture and appearance. The meat mixture was seasoned with simple, comforting ingredients: onion, garlic, salt, pepper, and a hint of Worcestershire sauce for depth. Some families added a touch of oregano or parsley for a bit of flavor variation. After being shaped into compact, uniform balls, the meatballs were browned lightly in a skillet before being simmered in a rich tomato-based sauce. The sauce was another source of comfort. Often made with canned tomato soup, diced tomatoes, or tomato sauce, it had a slightly sweet, tangy flavor that coated the meatballs beautifully. Some cooks added a dash of sugar or a pinch of paprika to balance the acidity and enhance the taste. As the meatballs simmered, the rice softened, soaking up the savory sauce and ensuring each bite was juicy and flavorful. Porcupine meatballs were often served over buttery mashed potatoes, egg noodles, or plain white rice. Next up, we have a noodle dish that features no noodles. 19. No noodle pad thai. Traditional pad thai is a stir-fried noodle dish bursting with bold flavors, and this version trades rice noodles for thinly sliced vegetables, transforming it into a colorful, vibrant, and surprisingly satisfying meal. The preparation begins with fresh, crunchy veggies. Zucchini and carrots are spiralized or julienned into thin ribbons that twirl around a fork just like traditional noodles. Cabbage, bell peppers, or bean sprouts can also be added for extra texture and variety. These vegetables are lightly stir-fried to retain their crispness, ensuring the dish stays refreshing and bright. The heart of no noodle pad thai lies in its sauce, a perfect balance of salty, sweet, sour, and umami flavors. A blend of fish sauce, lime juice, tamarind paste, and a touch of brown sugar or honey forms the backbone of the dish. This tangy, slightly sticky sauce coats the vegetables beautifully, infusing each bite with the classic pad thai flavor profile. Chili flakes or sriracha can be added for a bit of heat, while garlic and shallots bring aromatic depth. Protein is another key component, and options like tender shrimp, grilled chicken, or scrambled eggs are often tossed into the mix, creating a wholesome and hearty meal. For plant-based families, tofu is a delicious alternative that soaks up the sauce perfectly. The dish is garnished with chopped peanuts, fresh cilantro, and lime wedges. What better way to close this list than with a sandwich? 20. Focaccia sandwiches. Focaccia is a soft, dimpled Italian flatbread, brushed generously with olive oil and topped with herbs like rosemary, thyme, or oregano. It's baked until golden brown, creating a fluffy interior and a slightly crisp, flavorful crust that sets it apart from ordinary sandwich bread. Families would often bake focaccia from scratch, savoring the warm aroma of bread fresh from the oven, a sensory experience that remains unmatched. What makes focaccia sandwiches truly special is their ability to adapt to almost any filling. Classic versions often featured Italian flavors like fresh mozzarella, juicy tomatoes, and fragrant basil leaves, a nod to the beloved caprese salad. A drizzle of balsamic glaze and a smear of pesto elevated these sandwiches, adding bursts of tangy sweetness and herby richness. For meat lovers, layers of thinly sliced prosciutto, salami, or mortadella paired beautifully with sharp provolone or creamy ricotta cheese, creating a perfect balance of salty, savory, and creamy flavors. Grilled vegetables like zucchini, eggplant, and bell peppers were another popular choice, adding smoky, caramelized notes that paired perfectly with the olive oil-soaked bread. Focaccia's sturdy yet tender structure made it ideal for holding hefty fillings without falling apart. The sandwiches were often served warm, pressed lightly in a skillet or oven to toast the bread and melt the cheese, creating a satisfying crunch with every bite. And there you have it, 20 mouth-watering dishes that take us back to a time when meals were made from scratch, with simple ingredients and without a microwave. So, next time you're feeling nostalgic, why not slow things down and cook like Grandma used to? You might just rediscover a favorite meal that's been waiting for its comeback. If you enjoyed this journey through forgotten recipes, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share your favorite family dish in the comments below. Until next time.